Forever, my darling, my love will be true, always and forever. I'll love just you. Just promise me, darling, your love in return. Make this fire in my soul, dear, forever burn. My heart's at your command, dear, to keep love and to hold. Making you happy is my desire, dear. Keeping you is my goal. I'll forever love you the rest of my days. I'll never part from you and your loving way.
Hey, Benny, before we get started, quick shout out to the San Diego PD legend, man, Team 4 legend, Christopher Kilby. It is, Chris, going to be a very interesting interview. It's going to be a wonderful interview. And all the way from Thailand, man, we got our brother Batman, man, Tim DeJanis. Thank you, brother, for showing up today. I know it's early in the morning over there. Thank you. Now, brother, you have not put up a video in about 2 weeks. Every morning I wake up looking for your videos. So let's put one up. I don't care what it is. Let's put one up. I love your videos, brother. Tell us about the Lord, whatever you can. Talk to us. We got Tim Leica. Hi, from Glendale, Arizona. God bless you all. God bless you, Tim. Welcome, brother. Welcome to the show. Hey, Benny. ¿Cómo estás, Benny? You were in Bakersfield. Your mom's been a little sick. How's she doing? She doing better?
She's doing better. Thanks.
Okay, good. Benny, and I know you literally just drove up, man, about 20 minutes ago. And I know you're tired, but do you have any shout outs, Benny?
You know, and I can't remember how many years it's been now, but homegrown uniforms in Brawley just had an anniversary the other day. Joe's a real good friend of mine. He used to be a former CDCR correctional officer, and he gave it up and opened up a shop, and he caters to Imperial County Sheriff, Department of Corrections, mostly Department of Corrections. So he has a lot of the equipment, a lot of the gear. So he services pretty much all of the Imperial County law enforcement. So he's up in Brawley. Again, his homegrown uniforms. Stop by and say hi to the guy. I mean, the guy's an awesome guy. And I think they just had, I want to say, a 5-year anniversary. I'm not sure. I was looking at it and I just can't remember, dude. I got too many things going on in my head,
I know. You know what, Benny? If you remember, maybe for next week, we'll give him another shout out. Send me the logo and the address, and we'll pin it up so people that are watching us from that area can go visit the store.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Hey, Benny, listen, Chalo is working now, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be on the show, but whenever he can, he'll be showing up. He's working for the federal marshals, I believe. He's one of the blue coats, security, and he doesn't get out till, I believe, 6 o'clock. But hopefully he'll come on when he gets here. Sean is out on a mission. We don't know when he'll be back, but hey, praying for him. And we got Sergio Luna. Hey, Sergio, how you doing? Watching. Saludos again from Otay. Hey, Sergio, you're going to love next week's show on Ash Wednesday. We got Carlos Chacon. We're going to be talking about a murder that was never solved. Bienvenido, brother. Welcome, Sergio Luna. With that said, Benny, it's all yours, brother. I'm excited. And you know what? This is going to be a two-part interview, without a doubt. And you'll tell us at the end when part 2 will be. But without a doubt, it's all yours, brother.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about this, and we were talking to Norm about it. So it looks like we are going to have a second episode. David's working on the date right now, and we should be able to announce it at the end of the podcast today. So today's guest is Norm Wielsch. Norm was a law enforcement officer for 26 years. Norm was the commander of the Central Contra Costa Narcotics Enforcement Team. That's up in Northern California. And then he went to the California Department of Correction. I'm sorry, he went to Cal DOJ, California Department of Justice, B&E, which is Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement, from August of 1988 to March of 2011. Before that, he was a detective with the Antioch Police Department. Again, that's up in Northern California. Norm's life took a destructive spiral with major medical complications, and we're going to talk about that, causing his addiction to opiates. Norm's life took him on a downward spiral. I mean, he attempted suicide. He made some poor decisions that led to a 14-year prison sentence. Today, Norm's going to share with us his addiction and recovery. And we're going to talk about that slippery slope that we often see in law enforcement. We saw it with Ruben Palomares, who was LAPD, part of the movie Training Day. So, you know, it's a topic, you know, it's a good topic to talk about, you know. It's kind of a rare topic. Most people don't want to talk about this kind of stuff. But thanks to Norm and you know, they're open. They want to talk to us. You know, same thing with Ruben. Ruben's, they're open books. So thank you so much for joining us today, Norm.
Norm, we can't hear you, Norm. You might want to just double check.
Oh, there we go. Is that it?
There we go. We're on. Yes.
Sorry about that. Thank you for having me. You know, I just want to put out the story to stop that stigma of mental illness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Norm, let's get this thing started. So Norm, tell us about your childhood, your family dynamics, your childhood dreams. Tell us who was Norm back in when you were a kid.
So I grew up mostly a little bit in Canada, but mostly here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And my dad owned an auto repair shop, and I worked there, and that's where I get my love of cars from. I did a lot of car racing when I was younger, but when I started working at the shop full time after I graduated high school, I realized that really wasn't for me. You know, there was something missing out of my life, and I was the only child, and my parents were first generation German, so they came over here in the 50s after the war. And my dad was a military guy before that. So I grew up real strict, you know, and part of the teachings of my father was never show emotion. Don't talk about your feelings. You know, if I cried, I got smacked, you know, so those are how I actually was well suited for police work at that point. And so my dad retired. I took over the shop, but still I wasn't happy. There was something missing. And one night I went on a ride along with a local police department, and I loved it. I know that was for me. I really felt that it was for me. And so what I did is we ended up selling the business, and I was trying to get hired at that time. And because of no college education, I had a really tough time back then. That was 82, because they really wanted college graduates at that time. And so I put myself through the academy. And I was not at the top, but I was pretty close to the top. And I got hired before I left. So in between that time when I was in the academy, I was a reserve for a small little town called Pleasant Hill Police Department. Great time. You know, it kind of gave me an acclimation in there. It wasn't super busy. It wasn't a violent town. It was a sleepy little place. But that's when I first kind of met my like how things really work in the world, right? Because I was kind of shielded in the middle class, and that's my first bouts with death, you know, handling a death call and child abuse and all those things. And it was a really eye-opening thing for me. You know, none of the pamphlets that I read said, you know, may cause PTSD or maybe, you know, ruin your relationships with your family. But I was well suited because I kept my emotions down. So after I got hired at Antioch Police Department, I started off a patrol, went to traffic, and traffic was a lot more than I expected. I really did not expect the amount of death. We didn't have too many fatals, maybe 10 a year, but they always rolled around to me for some reason. And it was tough for me. It was really tough for me, but I was able to compartmentalize it and put it away. And so I wanted to get out of the death scene. So I put in for narcotics, and then I worked narcotic detective for I think almost 4 years, almost 4 years.
Hey, Norm, how old were you when you started the police academy?
23, 22 and a half, something like that.
Did you have any law enforcement experience? I mean, did you work as getting shoplifters? Did you have any type of experience talking to? Obviously, you did.
Well,
you were running
yeah.
a shop, so you knew how to talk to people.
Oh yeah. I did work several months as a reserve officer, and so I even worked my way up to level 1. So where I was able, so that really helped me a lot in the academy, especially with the 10 codes and the laws and stuff like that. But being a owner of a business, you really learn how to talk to people there easier, right? But the slap in the face was you're getting lied to every day, right? I mean, you're just being lied to. They're trying to pull the wool over your eyes constantly. So that was a little bit tougher for me to understand why they're doing it and understand the intricacies of figuring their lies out.
How big is the department in Antioch when you were working?
When I was working, I think we were 110. Okay. Now we're up to, I think, 135, maybe even 140.
What were the demographics in the city? I mean, did you have a lot of blacks? Did you have a lot of Hispanics? Did you have gangs, norteños back then? Because, I mean, that's all Northern California, right?
Right, but at that time it was a white cowboy type town. There was really? 23,000 people, but when I left, there was like 108, something like that, 108 or 110,000 people. It just exploded, while I was there, exploded, and there were maybe 10 African American families in the whole city, and it's just you didn't see that at all. And so the demographics were primarily white.
What about Hispanics? Because I know you have Napa, you have all those areas, agricultural. Did you have a lot of undocumented workers, communities within the city?
Not that I remember. We had a couple streets that were primarily Hispanic, but they never caused any problems or anything. And, undocumented was way far off of our list of things to do.
Yeah.
So, there were. And because unless they were out there doing something stupid, we didn't really end up contacting them. So in the early 90s, they became a little bit more prevalent when the heroin trade here started to kick up. And when we started doing investigations on the heroin stuff, then the Mexicans came up. But all the meth was all biker stuff. It was all bikers.
So when you were working narcotics, did you do a lot of undercover work? When you went to narcotics?
Yeah, actually, everyone there has to take a turn to work. I think it was like 10 months undercover where we weren't even supposed to come to the police department. That we were supposed to just grow out hair. They gave us a car. I think I had like a 68 Chevelle or something like that I drove around. And at night, we would go out with the cover team. And that's what my whole job was, to go buy dope. And by that time, the African-American population had really gone up because the neighboring city had a real big problem with it. And what they did is they ended up getting what's called the CAT team, the community action team. And they didn't arrest very many people, but they just harassed them. And then they moved over into our city. And then that was a crack blew up.
What was the neighboring? I'm not familiar with Antioch. I'm not familiar with Northern California. Was it Richmond, Oakland, that area?
No, we're a little bit further away from those cities. But Pittsburgh PD at that time was off the hook with crack. But they took a very aggressive approach to it. And they really, today, Pittsburgh is a lot nicer than Antioch is right now. Because there's a big scandal in the Antioch Police Department the last 5 years with racism, texts, claims of beating up people, because of their race, stuff like that. I think 3 have been prosecuted. I think like 10 have been fired. So we're down like 40 officers in our city here. And so stuff is off the hook here, But at the time in the 90s, we were fully staffed, but our chief back then had a different philosophy. They said community policing, and what they wanted to do was shake hands, go talk to the neighbors, and hopefully to get some informants out there, but no one ever did. So the streets were just crazy back then with the crack.
So what about PCP? Did you guys have PCP back then, or it was just crack cocaine? And what
every
about
once in a while, every once in a while you'd see PCP, but not very often. Not to even get an expertise out of it. Mm-hmm. It was mostly meth, then heroin, and then rock, and then marijuana.
Okay.
So we had meth labs. In the couple of years that I was actually working labs, we had, I think, 45 or 48 labs a year in the city. And that's how I got to know.
That was before you went to B&E, right?
Yes.
This is still working as a patrol officer or undercover detective.
Yeah, in the early 90s. Yeah, and that's how I got to know everybody at the Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement, DOJ, is because they came in to clean up the labs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Benny, feel free to jump in since we're talking about his police career. That was a question that we had, but you took us there. Let me ask you a question. So now you're working narcotics, you work traffic, you've seen the worst of the worst accidents because that's what traffic does. Yeah. You're working narcotics. And then where do you go before you go to Bureau of Narcotic Enforcement for Department of Justice? Where did you go prior to going there within the Antioch Police Department?
Back to patrol.
Okay.
And working about a year patrol, I realized that, I didn't want to work patrol. I love narcotics. That was my expertise. I mean, I testify as an expert in every court around here, even federal court. And I loved that type of work, And so it was a year process to go on to DOJ, and they hired me in 98. So I left the Antioch PD in 98.
Did you have to go through another academy?
Yes, I did.
How long was the academy, and how old were you by then in 98?
Oh, gosh, you're making me do the math. I was born in 61, 71, 81, 38, 39, 38, something like that.
Okay,
and,
all right.
Yeah, so it was weird going through it. Mm-hmm. And it was all in Sacramento, so it wasn't even near where I lived. I had to live up in Sacramento for 3 months. Oh. But it was a great experience because they really went through undercover operations, surveillance. I mean, it was just, it was worthwhile going to, and I'm grateful that I had the chance to go to it. But
hey, Norm,
was not a good year for me.
Norm, what academy did you go to for police?
Los Medanos Police Academy was the first one, which is a community college in Pittsburgh. So Los Medanos, but it's no longer there. So now Pittsburgh has their own police academy. Mm-hmm. So that the one that I went through like 100th academy, and that one was defunct now. Yeah. So now the only academies around are Dublin, was Alameda County, Napa County, and Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Norm, I got there was when I was working patrol in Santee in San Diego County, I lost the flip of a coin. It was between a partner of mine and myself. One was going to go to detectives, one was going to go to traffic. So the flip was done, and I lost. So guess where I went? I went to traffic. And then in 1 year, I had 9 fatal investigations that I actually conducted. 9 fatals. That's not counting all the other ones that I went to help out with.
Yeah.
So you do see a lot of death in car accidents, and those are the sad ones though, because those are the ones that people are expecting their loved ones to come home.
Yeah. I've had children. I had decapitation. I mean, it's just, it's it's worse because they're innocent people, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound harsh or mean, but if it's a guy that's out there committing crime and he gets shot, it's really not as bad as some mother trying to get home to her kids and is hit by a drunk driver and killed.
Yeah.
Hey, Norm, we got a picture of you. That's you working patrol. Is that after you left narcotics, you went back to patrol?
Oh my God, that would be before I went to narcotics, I think. Look how skinny I am. Look at that hair. Look at, man, what a handsome guy, right?
Yeah, you were. You could have been a movie star.
I think that's an old Impala too. Oh God, we're going way back. Man.
You look like a fireman.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Well, I was thinking more of a porn star, but I mean,
yeah.
The mustache was right.
Yeah.
It's starting that mullet.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Yeah, so long ago, man. So long ago.
So
But
you go
98
back to patrol. You go back to patrol. Can you share with us, for those cops that are watching the show right now, does anything when you went back to patrol stand out other than the accidents? Share with us an incident as a patrol officer in Antioch that basically you will never forget. There's, I
Oh
know,
gosh.
1,000 incidents, but just that one,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
The one that I'll never forget, it's because, yeah, okay. So it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning. Had a speeder on this little highway. It's not really a freeway, a highway in between the cities and a kind of rural part of it. And so I make the U-turn. I stop him. He drives into an industrial area. But what was weird is he drove way in the back of this industrial area. So I was already like, what's going on here? Cover wasn't available for a while. So when I stopped, I light them all up, and something just told me, and I hardly ever did this, hardly ever. Something told me inside, hey, go around the back, the back of the car to approach him on the passenger side. And when I did, right when I walked up to the window, you could see him with the gun, just like this, waiting. And luckily I ended up getting the drop on him, and he dropped it. He didn't fight or put up a struggle. But he told me when we got him back, he had a bunch of warrants, and he told me that he was going to kill me if I was right there. He was going to kill me.
Wow!
And,
So if you would have got up to the driver's side, he was going to kill you.
If I would have, and at that time, I didn't know God, right? I mean, I didn't even believe in God at that time. I didn't think of it at the time, but now that I look back, I see God's hand in all these different things. Because I was shot at a couple times, but that stands in because He said, yeah, I've got these warrants, and I would have just killed you and headed out to Indiana or something, and that really stands out that I didn't do it. And I don't know why I didn't do it. Something inside me said, go the other way.
Yeah, it's hearing that voice, man, that voice, and it's hearing that voice of God. So now you go through the academy. Now you start a brand new career at 38 years old. You're with the Department of Justice, and you're working narcotics. Tell us about your first year working narcotics with a task force.
Okay, let me just backtrack just a little bit. So in the transition in between the police and the detective slot, I made it so I could have like a month off, right? Mm-hmm. And during that month, I started to get these big blisters on my feet. And so when I went to the doctor, they checked if I was diabetic and stuff, and I wasn't. But that's when they diagnosed me with peripheral neuropathy. So peripheral neuropathy is mostly in diabetics. And what happens is, you can almost see that there on that would be my left finger. You see there's an open wound there. Yeah. That would happen on my feet. And these wounds wouldn't heal. And so that's the result of all the surgeries. Oh God. Oh, wow. And I've since lost my left big toe. They took that a month and a half ago because of that problem with the bone sticking out there. But so anyway, I get diagnosed with this neuropathy. It turns out to be genetic. Then I get diagnosed with a neuromuscular disease. That was my hand surgery just last month. And it's still not right. But so this only 110,000 people in the whole United States have this disease. And unfortunately, I'm one of them. So what was going on was these blisters wouldn't heal. And what would have to happen is I would have to be casted up with a bubble underneath each wound so that there'd be absolutely no pressure on the bottom of my foot in order to heal. So when I went to the academy, after every day, at lunch, first of all, I would go to the hotel room or wherever we were at. We had a lot of Air Force bases and stuff. I would pull off my socks, and my socks would be just soaked with blood, because of those open wounds. And I would just put it, clean it, put another 4x4 gauze pad on there, and go back out. Right? I can't tell. I quit. I can't tell DOJ now. Hey, I got this disease. Sorry. Wow. So I had to keep that all hidden. I mean, it was a rough 3 months, and because I couldn't cast it. So that I was dealing with the start of this disease, which eventually took me down.
And Norm, it's also very, very painful, right?
At that time it was, but it has since the pain has went away. So in other words, you start off with shooting pains.
Yes, I read about that.
Yeah, then it feels numb and it hurts and it aches, and then the pain just goes away. So now I have no feeling in my hands or my feet. I don't know if you can see all the Band-Aids on it. I cook for my wife now, and I miss the pot because my hands don't work right, and I'm burning my hand right and left. I don't even know I burn it, because I don't feel the heat. I can put my hand on a barbecue and not even feel it. I could burn the skin right off it. I could step on a nail and go through my foot, and I wouldn't even feel it.
So, Norm, you had this disease before getting hired by Kel DOJ?
Yeah.
And they never found out about it?
No, because I never told them.
Yeah.
It was a couple years from then that all the surgery started. So I was pretty much keeping it under wraps. We were on a 410. So I would have 3 days off. And during those 3 days, like on the way home from work, I would stop off. I had a doctor that was just phenomenal. He would order a cast to be put on the way home from work. And then on the way to work on Monday morning, they'd take the cast off and it would heal halfway. And then the next week I'd do the same thing. And then they'd heal and then they'd open up again. They'd heal, then open up again. It was very trying on your psyche, right? I could, at that time, I could still walk, run. I could still do everything physically, but it was just they were open. And then so after a couple of years of that, infection started because it's your feet your shoes are dirty. There's your socks and you sweat, and so that's how I went. I can get into this later, but about 35 surgeries during that 10-year period there, taking away bones, and as you can see from the feet, they took away all the bones behind my toes, and it started to disfigure my feet, and then I lost all movement in my. Behind the toes, there's no bones. That's why the toes are all disfigured, and then they're twisting, because the bones behind the toes are called metatarsals, and they were growing down to the ground, and they were poking holes through my skin, and that's why they had to remove all those bones. But in that, I ended up losing my balance. You can see I had my will be my right ankle there. You could see a scar there from they tried to mess with the Achilles tendon. I mean, they tried to do everything, but I couldn't walk anymore. I needed braces. So in 2002, I started having to wear braces just to walk. And that's when I really started to believe that my physical abilities were just going downhill. And that's when
your hands, we see your hands.
So
could you still shoot a gun?
At that point I could, but when we got into 2008, then that was it. On my hand, because of the deformity of the hands, I lost all the strength. I couldn't zip a zipper. I couldn't button a button. I could still barely tie my shoes. It was very, very difficult. My wife sewed in my BDUs, sewed Velcro into the BDUs, and I never wore, if I had a button-down shirt, I would pull it over my head like I still do today. I had to buy a pair of size bigger pants so I can never unbutton them. I just pull them up, so there was a lot of adapting, and that caused a lot of heartache and worrying about my future, right? Because as you guys know, and maybe it's just me, I don't know, but most cops that I talk to, a cop is our identity. It's not a job.
Oh, it is. No,
right?
It's an identity.
If I'm a cement worker and I can't work no more, okay, well, then I'll just go be a gardener. Cop's the only thing I know, and now I'm getting a point where I can't even work on cars because I can't hold a screwdriver. Like today, my wife wanted me to help her do something. I couldn't hold the wrench. Like my hands could not hold the wrench. And so the muscle memory stopped. So at night, my wife got so mad at me. Every night I would draw, of course I'd unload the weapon, but draw out of the holster 100, 150 times a night just to try to keep that muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
And eventually it all just went. And when the fingers start curling, it's hard to get that index finger into the trigger guard. So that was happening. So like I used to be, I was always on SWAT and on the entry teams, But then my shooting, the ranges got slower and slower and slower. And, and this is that slippery slope, right? I just started lying. Well, my arthritis is really starting to hurt, today. So that's why I'm not up to par today with the shooting. I mean, it was always pretty accurate, but the times, because I had to readjust my finger, and then I couldn't reload the magazines. I had to buy a special reloader, and so there was a lot of looking at me cross-eyed and funny, but I was well liked. I think I was well liked, and I was trusted, and I was respected. So my agency allowed me a lot of room, which looking back now was probably a big mistake on their part, right?
Hey, Norm, what was your position at the time? What was your status? I mean, were you already a commander or?
In 2004, I got promoted to commander, which is equal to a lieutenant. So before that, I was having those problems, but not as many. When I got promoted to commander, then my hands really started to go downhill. But then, like I said, you're the commander. The task force was just doing phenomenally. We were getting a lot of arrests. There was like a model agency, because at that time, a lot of departments were going away from the task force type of model and just doing their own narcotics units in-house. But we were still doing real good. And so, like I said, I think that I was well respected. But what happened was so I had about 2 surgeries a year. So if you think about it, so you have a surgery, you have to at least spend a week and a half off, maybe 2 weeks off, because you got the incisions and everything. And then you're supposed to be a cast with the knob on the end, so I could walk. It'd be a walking cast, but I couldn't do full duty, right? So twice a year, my agency would allow me to work light duty behind the desk. But no, because of who I am, I know you guys are probably the same way. You couldn't keep me in the office. When there was an operation to be done, I was out there too. I was in the back, but I was at the operation. And so when I look back now and I see that over a 10-year period, I ran out of vacation, I ran out of sick leave, I ran out of comp time. I was basically being off for free because I could not afford, or I had to be off, right, with these surgeries. Not one time, and I'm not blaming them, okay? I don't want to make this sound like I'm whining and sniveling, but when I look back on supervisory theories and supervisory practices, not one time did any one of my bosses, because it would be the SAC and the ASAC and so on, they would not even visit me. They wouldn't even call me. Hey, man, what's up? Hey, this is like the 4th month you've taken off. Are you all right? Nothing.
Yeah. Where were they at? Were they in Sacramento, or were they there where you were at?
No, San Francisco.
Oh,
so
is that where you were headquartered at San Francisco?
Yeah. But once a month.
Yeah,
down at Fisherman's Wharf, we have a big state building that's where our main offices were at. But I was housed in Pleasant Hill with the task force, so I only went to San Francisco probably once a month. But they came out, the SACs came out once a month for our monthly meetings, and I'm not blaming them, I'm not saying that, but when you look back, if you see somebody faltering, if you see somebody maybe sliding, not necessarily in criminality or anything, but sickness, illnesses, maybe that warranted a little bit of, hey man, what's up? Because if that would have happened, I would have had to tell the truth, right? And say, this is going on. And I think they would have probably had me tested for, fit for duty. Because to be honest, I look back, I wasn't fit for duty. And looking back, I put a lot of guys in a dangerous situation when it was my selfish attitude that I didn't want to quit. I didn't want to retire type thing.
And Norm, nobody, the secretaries, your co-workers, you're a commander. I don't know what the structure is in B&E, but you have a commander equivalent to a lieutenant. What about, do you have a sergeant? What is he called? Just a supervisor?
No, it's just an agent, special agent,
okay.
Special agent supervisor, and then commander, and then a SAC, special agent in charge.
And the special agent supervisor, he never saw you. He never pulled you aside and say, hey, listen, man, dude, look at your hand. I mean, were they afraid of you? Were they intimidated of you? Or were they just stupid? I mean, because
I
I'm
don't
telling
want to call them stupid.
well, what I mean is, did they? I mean, me as a supervisor, let me just tell you, me as a supervisor, when I saw one of my guys was shaken on the line, or I saw that he was just something was wrong, dude, I'd confront it. I had to confront it because he was a danger to himself and to us when I was working narcotics when we did our entries. I mean, why didn't nobody confront? I mean, you could see your hands, they're shriveled, and you could see you,
Well,
you know?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I don't want to put it in such harsh terms because I do respect these guys.
I don't mean to say stupid. I don't mean to say stupid. What I mean is ignorant. I mean,
no, I know.
Why don't you confront it?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never asked because I never had time. Because basically, right after my arrest, they were going to do this long investigation, and I knew I was guilty, so I just retired out at that point. I retired out early, like 2 months earlier than, so I was not making any retirement income because I didn't want to. I already abused my position enough to where people were paying me and I was doing stupid stuff, right? I didn't want to make any more. But what happened was when after my arrest, my wife tried to meet with him.
You know what? Let's don't go there yet because we're going to work our way up. Okay. We're going to work our way up. Now let's go back to now. We already went through the disease. We went through the illness. You showed us. So now you're in B&E. I mean, that's a coveted job by a lot of cops nationwide. California. I mean, you guys work narcotics. You guys, I mean, you're there. You know what I mean? Other than who's above you, DEA, ICE. Yeah. You're there. I know a lot of cops that went from San Diego PD, and I'm sure Benny, you knew a lot for the sheriffs. So now you're there. Tell us about some of the cases before we go to the arrest and everywhere else. Tell us about, because I want the people that are listening to know you as a cop before they know you as a convict or an inmate. You know what I mean? Yeah, I want them to know. So far, we know you work traffic. You saw a lot of we call them 1180s. There's a lot of death. You worked narcotics. You worked undercover. You went back to patrol. You probably saw a lot of suicides. You had a lot of SIDS, all that. But now you're working narcotics. Tell us about the cases that you worked. I mean, you're in San Francisco. I mean, you got Richmond. You got Oakland. You got that whole area over there, gangs, cartels, prison gangs. Can you share some of those experiences with us? Did you freeze up?
Yeah, it looked like he froze up a little bit.
Yeah, he'll come up right now. Yeah, can you share some of those? And I got some pictures here. That's you right.
Well, you're in and out.
Yeah, can you see it now? Can you hear me?
That's mine.
Yeah,
you were freezing up a little bit, but I got the gist of everything. That's the CNET team. That's the task force guys, and that's the task force bust we had was one of our best ones. It was a real honor. They only take the best. Their background check was literally twice as in depth as the police one. It was incredible. They talked to my ex-wife. They talked to my current girlfriend. They talked to my children. It was really something. So I'm really proud that I was able to work there. And they start you off in labs, to get your feet wet in labs. So I spent 2 years in labs, and it was great though. We traveled all over the state. This was when we were trying to get ephedrine on the list and red phosphorus. And so we were trying to do a bunch of cases, and the Mexican nationals were all in charge of that. So we would be down to San Diego, back down to Riverside a lot with surveillance. We'd track guys, coming up here with the chemicals to certain chemical companies that were out here and tracking them back to labs in the central county. I mean, it's the most rewarding thing to bust a barn that has like 15, 22-liter flasks. These are big, giant flasks that could make multiple pounds of meth. And to shut that down, it was just really rewarding. We had a great time. The downside of it was going to the local cities where they had these small labs, like in a bathroom of a hotel or something. and putting on the white bunny suit and carrying everything out with the respirator and stuff. But it was an honor to do that. And I built up a lot of relationships at other police departments because of it. And that's the best part, is you meet so many people.
Is there any case that you could share with us that stands out?
The case I'm most proud of when I worked at the B&E, not the task force, is there was a case in Concord. So it's maybe 10 miles away from where I am, and about maybe 5 miles away from the task force offices. It was a chemical company named Alpha Chemical, and they were selling multiple ounces of red phosphorus to basically anybody that would come out there, and we were getting the precursor list, and we would just watch. Then we start surveillances on them. And a couple other agents years before had started cases on the owner and his wife for just selling willy-nilly, knowing that these guys come in, they smell like meth, they smell like marijuana, but they're still selling them chemicals. And we find their chemicals in all sorts of labs everywhere from Lake County down to Modesto. And so they finally gave the case to me because everybody kept transferring out or getting promoted. And man, I worked real hard, and I hit that guy real hard. And what I did is I put enough pressure on him. Well, not me, I mean us. We put enough pressure on him to finally retire. So he stopped the business. And boy, our number of labs in Contra Costa and Alameda County went way down after we stopped that chemical company. And so I ended up doing a search warrant on his house based upon a whole bunch of paperwork. I mean, it was more of a paper case than anything. And we ended up seizing a bunch of money. I think it was over $500,000.
Wow.
Yeah, we took his houses and everything. And so we found out that when we added up everything, was responsible or partly responsible for the production of like 5,000 pounds of methamphetamine. And when we went to court and they heard that, but the judge decided to give him 1 year. So I don't know if it was a win or not, but they gave him 1 year. Wife got away because, she said it was him, which is okay with me, but at least we put him out of business, and it slowed the labs down. And then just right after that, they finally put the phosphorus and ephedrine on the list to where you had to identify yourself to purchase it, like at grocery stores or pharmacies and stuff. So that helped bring the labs down. But then of course they went to different types of labs, like Nazi lab, and they went to all different kinds of labs. So I don't think we're ever going to be able to stop it. But that was the case I was most proud of, not because somebody couldn't do it, but because I took it over. It was a dead case. I was able to take it over, and I was able to make something of it. So I'm most proud of that one.
And Norm, I know you guys were a narcotics task force, but did you guys work any gang cases, any Norteño cases, any NF, any Northern Structure, any Hell's Angel type of cases that you could recall?
We didn't work them ourselves, but we were asked to be on the DEA's team to help them as for manpower, mostly for wires. So the Hell's Angels, there was a Russian gang. I'm trying to remember the name of it. There was a Russian gang in the South Bay that was doing a lot of MDMA. We helped them. And then there was a cartel. I forget which cartel it was. They're from Sinaloa. I forgot the name of it, but they were the ones that were trafficking in hundreds of gallons of Freon at that time, the liquid Freon. And so another agent in our office was able to do that one, and a bunch of people got arrested, and we didn't get to seize much, but a lot, it put out that whole area was put out. No more meth coming from those guys, which was great. Once in a while you end up with really no drugs.
Hey, Norm, before Benny's going to change the subject on us now. He's going to get ready to start talking about the criminal case, the slippery slope. But before he does, I want to throw a quick shout out to some of the people that got here a little late. Big VJ Juarez, faithful follower, JC. Thank you for serving our country, brother. We got Phoenix PD legend, Saul Ayala. Thank you, brother, for everything you do. We got our sister, Ceci, all the way from Riverside. We got San Diego Sheriff legend, Roger Demshock. We have Iceman from Santa Rosa, Califas. And we have Heinz Marty. I don't think we've ever seen you, Marty. Welcome to the show. Where did Lou end up? Lost track of him, ex-APD. By the way, it might be related to you. It might be Antioch PD, a guy by the name of Lou. You might know this guy. And then we got Lupe from Riverside. And there you go. Do you know this gentleman, Heinz Marty? He's talking about Lou.
No, but I know a Lou. I don't know if it's the same Lou. I don't know where he ended up. If he was one of my co-defendants, if he was, but I don't know where he ended up.
Okay, perfect. Benny, it's all yours, brother.
Norm, I hear you talking about the way you guys used to handle laps, in white suits and all that. When I started back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was still a patrol dog, and we were going to calls up in Lakeside with blown laps, and we were walking right in, touching things without gloves, stepping on red pee like nothing, getting back in the car with red boots, and nobody cared. Nobody said anything. It was not a big thing,
Oh, you're exactly right. Yeah, when I was with the PD, that's what we did too. You have to check out what you got there before you call DOJ. So yeah, we're touching stuff, and there's pipe bombs right there, and we're just like, okay, all right. It just was crazy.
In San Diego County, NTF, which was an offshoot of DEA, which was the local agencies, they handled all the laps. It was a narcotics task force. It wasn't because it wasn't needed in San Diego. They had, we're big enough to, have all the different teams and all that,
Yeah,
so
Norm, San Diego's PD is huge.
So Norm, let's talk about the bad stuff now. How did you get involved in criminal activity, brother? Was it a lack of supervision? Tell us what happened. How did it all start? Did it start with strip clubs and all that kind of stuff? What happened?
No, it was all my own inability to cope. So when these surgeries started in about 2001, 2002, the stress of all this brought out my PTSD, right? Like I think I mentioned before, I was shot at a few times, and just these incidents that we all go through, and I'm no different. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had a much longer career than I did and have seen more than I ever have. But for some reason, my resilience wasn't that much. And what happened was I just started to have nightmares. I started to have anxiety attacks and panic attacks. And I think it was in therapy, my psychologist says that it's probably related to the stress on the surgeries, because what's happening is if you're identifying as a cop, a strong guy, I worked out, I was muscular, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you see your career heading down the toilet. And then, because you're getting all these surgeries and you're stressed out because you don't know if the boss is going to find out. You're stressed out because you don't want the team to think that you're weak, because weakness is a career killer in our line of work. And all that, the PTSD just popped out. And back then, after every surgery, they would give you hundreds of Vicodin, Percocet, basically whatever was on their shelf. And I really didn't take very much of it because I had no feeling in my hands and my feet. But when I did take it, I noticed something, that I was numbing my emotions, right? I noticed that I felt better in a way. And it's kind of hard to explain. But if you worked with any drug addicts, you know that the drug addicts, what they're trying to do is they're trying to run away from whatever it is that's the root cause of their issues. And that's what I was doing. I didn't know how to handle it. I was afraid to tell anybody. Even my best friend, who's now retired too, we would talk, at least a couple times a week about stuff going on at work and bosses and all that kind of stuff. But I was afraid to tell him because I didn't want to seem weak. I didn't want to seem because it doesn't seem to me like anybody else was going through this, right? Except for I did know a lot of people that would have alcohol in the car, and that they would have a lot of pain pills around and stuff. But it was always, oh yeah, I got a backache and all this kind of stuff, So
But Norm, what caused the criminal activity? What caused you to start
That's what I'm
doing
getting to
bad
is
stuff?
once you start using the pills, they start at 2 every 6 hours, and it goes to 3 every 4 hours, to 5 every 2 hours, and pretty soon you're really not thinking right. Then when my hands, I didn't do anything at all until 2009, and that's when my hands had started to. I mean, I swear I was an honest officer. I was decorated, and I couldn't deal with it. So what happened in 2008 was, I was dealing with this. I didn't believe I was an addict, but I was an addict. So what happened? So I'm dealing with the PTSD. I'm dealing with my hands, which I can barely use anymore. And then the third thing that happens is my daughter, who was 24 at the time, she ended up getting liver tumors, and went to the doctor, and they basically showed us the tumors on a screen and said, well, these tumors are so big, and they're circling around an artery. So the only place that could really do the surgery was UCLA Medical Center in LA. And for the first thing I needed to do was do a biopsy. So that really put me in a downhill spiral. That's my daughter. A brief history is she was born with aplastic anemia, which is a blood disease, where I was her bone. She needed a bone marrow transplant. I was her donor. So there's a connection with us, right? A DNA connection, because her DNA and my DNA is the same. And it's usually not that way. It's usually siblings are the same. So in my mind, I'm going to a place where she's sick now. She's going to die because there's only 50% surgery, 50% survival of the surgery. And it's going to be my fault because she's got my DNA, right? I don't know if you guys can even understand this, but
so now you have that guilt.
So,
and you're still a cop still, right? You're still a commander.
I'm still working. Yeah.
You're working. Wow.
I'm working, taking a bunch of pills every day and still working. And so in my mind, I'm holding myself responsible because of my DNA. This is totally crazy. I know it. You don't have to tell me. I know it's crazy, but this is what goes through your mind. Is she's going to die? What's going to happen is I'm going to be responsible because she's got my DNA. Okay, so that's right there. So later on, she ended up getting a biopsy. The church, I started going to church. That's a whole long story there, but I started going to church. After the biopsy, she was miraculously healed. That's a whole nother story. But before she got healed, before I committed a crime, I tried to commit suicide like twice. Once I had the gun in my mouth. I couldn't do it. I felt, now I look back, I think it's God. The other time was I was going to drive into the Sacramento River, right? I'm going to roll down the windows. I can't take my seatbelt off because of my hands. So I figured, okay, I can't have second thoughts about it. I'm just going to do it. But there was too many cars there, and I couldn't get a time. So that didn't work out.
Were you in a company car when you were going to commit suicide?
Yeah, I had a work car, police car. It was not a police car. It was a Nissan Maxima, but it was all equipped with everything.
But everybody would have thought that it happened on duty. Your wife would have got the money, and you would have been a hero, correct?
Yeah.
So you wanted to take yourself out that way, so you would be the hero.
Right. I had already started to drive like crazy, at 90 miles on the freeway, and in search warrants, even though I wasn't fit. I used to be in the back. Now I went to the front. I entered rooms on my own, hoping to get shot.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just so stupid when I look back now. But those were the things going through my mind. So I don't know why I decided to do this, but a guy that I knew, I worked with him at Antioch. He had since become a private investigator. He was owed a lot of taxes. And one day he said, hey, I could really use some, if you can get some drugs out of the evidence, I could really use that in order to pay off my taxes. And for some reason, it didn't seem so unplausible. I would have never done that 2-3 years before, but at this point in my life, one of my psychiatrists believed that it's a way to implode your career without doing it yourself. You sabotage everything just to get out from under everything. I don't know if that's true. I just had no reason to live anymore. I had nothing to do. My daughter was going to die. You know, I couldn't barely wipe my butt with these hands. I couldn't take care of myself. It wasn't be too long. My foot doctor said I was going to be, by 60 years old, I was going to be in a wheelchair. It just was like nothing to look forward to. There was no hope. I had lost all hope. And for some reason, I thought it was okay. And I stole 1 pound of meth and 10 pounds of weed out of the evidence locker it was already an adjudicated case. We weren't going to file any charges on it, so it didn't affect anybody's cases. But it was dope that was supposed to be destroyed, and I gave it to him. And unfortunately, fortunately for me, unfortunately for him, but fortunately for me, that the guy he was going to sell it to was already an informant. So the drugs never hit the street. I got arrested the next day, and that was basically it, you know. And
hey, Norm, Norm, we have Grant. I don't know who he is, but welcome to the show. It says everything went south when Chris Butler entered the picture. Is that the guy that we're talking about, Chris Butler? The one that was a cop, became a private investigator, and basically asked you to steal the drugs? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. See, I never want to blame anybody because it was my decisions. No one influenced me, but he has a way of making things look right. I mean, he just had a way of talking like a used car salesman. I don't want to even insult used car salesmen like that, but I can't blame anybody. This was my own idea. I think that, well, it was my idea. This was my own decisions to do it. Maybe I thought I was smarter than everybody else and I could get away with it. Maybe I knew I was, because I did write memos that said I destroyed the drugs alone, and it's against departmental policy to do this alone. You have to have 3 people. So I would have been called out right there during one of my inspections, you know. But to be honest, I don't know why. I don't know why I did. To this day, I don't know exactly where that fork in the road was, because, you know, the worst thing I did to that point was lie to my bosses about my physical wellness. That was the only thing. I never stole any money. I never, you know, planted dope on anybody. I never beat anybody up. You know, I never did anything like that. So this was so different for me. And all I can think of is that I wanted out, and I didn't have the balls, didn't have the guts to kill myself. So maybe this is the way to do it. I don't know. That's my best thought about that.
Hey, Norm, we're going to stop right here. Unless, Benny, you have anything more you want to ask him about the crime? Well, Benny, if you want to, feel free.
Well, you say you stole the dope. How did you steal the dope? How easy was it? I mean,
you
know,
the dope was stored. The dope was stored at the sheriff's department. Again, I'm the task force commander. Just go to the sheriff's department, sign it out. It was easy as that.
So you signed it out. You didn't go like in the evidence room
and
steal it.
No. And that's one of the things that I look back on now. And I think that if I were really trying to hide things, I would have blamed it on somebody else, right? I would have had one of my guys, because I could have said to one of my guys, hey, go to the sheriff's department, get out evidence number 1 on case ABC, you know, and bring it to me. He would have not thought about it. You know, hey, I got court. Can you just get it for me? I mean, I could have easily, you know, manipulated documents. You know, I mean, I didn't even look for counter surveillance. Everything was on the phone. It was, and again, I'm not trying to put any blame. I did everything myself, but I truly believe in my heart that this was a self-sabotage thing, because listen, at that time I had worked dope for over 15 years. I mean, I know, you know, if I want to sell dope, I'm not going to steal it out of evidence, right? Or maybe I'm going to take it, throw some white powder in there, you know, switch it up or something, because it was going to be destroyed anyway. You know, saying that there was many ways that I could have done it if I really wanted to be a dope dealer. And I just didn't do anything, no counter surveillance. You know, normally if you do a drug deal, you check out who the buyer is, right? I could have said, hey, Chris, who's the buyer? What's his phone number? I could have went through all the databases, you know, but I didn't do that, you know, because I didn't care. And my daughter is phenomenal today. God healed her of her tumors. I hope we get into that because it shows God's grace.
We will.
Yes. Me, even to a shithead like me, he shows his grace.
Well, I'll tell you, I can't wait. Our show is going to be next Monday at 6 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock. Is it okay with you, Benny? We had talked about it. Is it in the calendar? So we're going to go part two next week. I can't wait because today we talked about the downfall. Next week, we're going to talk about the triumph. We're going to talk about being in prison and what happened to you in prison. Who did you do time with? Ruben Palomares. We're going to talk about all the other guys you did time with. And then we're going to, at the end, I can't wait to the end because I know that this story has a story of redemption, a story of hope, and I can't wait till next week. With that said, Benny, any last words for Norm?
Norm, thanks for coming on. I know it's hard. You know, you say it's easy, but I know it's hard. You know, to relive all that bad stuff. You know.
I just want to say one thing if I could, because I don't know if the same people watching are going to be here at that time, but I truly want. I'm going to start crying. I truly want to apologize to any law enforcement out there because I besmirched the badge. I tarnished it because of what I did. Other police officers out there were looked at sideways or maybe, second looks. I didn't mean to do that, and I just want to say sorry to everybody that was affected by it. I've had to arrest cops myself, and it's rough. So I'm just sorry for anything that might have happened while they were, putting my name and face all over the newspaper, and I really realize how tough of a job we all do and you all do now, and especially now it's gotten worse. And I just want to say that I'm really sorry.
Hey, brother, God bless you. You know what? You went through everything, but the story doesn't end. I can't wait for you guys to watch it next week. Look at he turned this tragedy into a victory. And I'm telling you, he's written 2 books, but we're going to talk about him next week. He's a guy that I went to when I was suffering from PTSD, and God used him to be a part of my healing. So it wasn't in vain, trust me. But we're going to get into that next week. But Chris Kilby, the legend, San Diego PD says, damn, can't believe no friend saw this coming. Do those buddy checks. Let me tell you what Chris Kilby does every day. He takes a 1 to 2 hour walk every day, and that's what he does, his buddy checks. He calls cops that he hasn't talked to in months just to see how they're doing. He had me on the phone for 2 hours today. I was his buddy today. And you know what? It's guys like him that care. You know what I mean? When I said, didn't anybody call you? But it's guys like Chris Kilby. And, hey, brother, I can't wait till next week. It's going to be Roger Demshock says, Norm, God bless you. And you destroyed CNET, dude. We never recovered. Okay, that's okay. But you know what? Next week, we're going to find out how you helped me and so many others come to the Lord. And Big Vic, we're praying for you, Norm. There always has to be a setback to get back. Hey, that's good, Sassy. Brother, we love you. You're a brother in Christ. Thank God that God doesn't look at us with eyes of men. He looks at us with eyes of grace. And you know what, brother? I can't wait till next week. And it's going to be an outstanding interview. Benny, any last words for Norm before we let him go?
Norm, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, when I bring people over, I do a lot of research. So I found, a lot of newspaper articles, because I have access to that. So I still want to talk about some of that stuff because I know some of the audience wants to know more about this, like when you said that you took the dope, but people start thinking, oh, he got into evidence. Did he burglarized it? He break into it? How was it? It's easy. You check that out, like you said. Mm-hmm. And we as detectives, we used to check out stuff all the time: guns, dope, money, all kinds of stuff. And we as detectives, we sign out for it and we take it. And then, but there's also accountability. It's got to come back. It didn't come back. I mean, somebody else has got to be, somebody's head has to roll. I mean, why didn't it come back? At what point does it have to come back? So there's still supervision. It's not that easy. I mean, you may sound a little bit easy, but it's not that easy. I mean, you got to return the stuff.
Yeah. There is accountability, and those things are checked, right? They're just not. Nobody cares. It's every year they do an audit of all the evidence. So. But when you're not in that place in your head, you don't think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Norm, thank God that we serve a God, forgiving God. because if he wasn't a forgiving God, I'd be in hell right now. I'd be the first one in hell with you. You know what I mean? And I think Benny would be the only one in heaven. But
That's
I'd
right.
be in hell,
That's right.
without a doubt, brother. Without a
Yep.
doubt, I'd be in hell. But
Yeah.
thank God we serve a forgiving God. And you know what? And if man doesn't forgive you, God bless him. The best form of revenge, and I'm not talking about revenge, is success. Your books, God has used you to save many lives. So, man, I'm looking forward to next week. Brother, we will see you next week. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Norm.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
Norm.
you. All right. Man, Benny, man, deep. Very, very deep, brother. Very, very deep.
Yeah.
By the grace of God.
There's a lot more.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot more. Next week, I'm telling you, it is going to be outstanding next week. But Benny, so we're going to find out next week if we're having him on Monday at 6:00. I'm looking forward to that. We'll start blasting, everybody reminding them. That's going to be a great interview. And then you'll let us know about, tell us about the gentleman. Is it Santa Cruz PD that he works for?
No, for next Tuesday, we have scheduled Detective Alejandro Cruz. He's a Merced County Sheriff's Department detective. Detective Cruz is an expert on Nuestra Familia, on the regiments in Merced County. We got to hear how those regiments work, how they're structured, their leadership. I mean, we're going to hear it from somebody who actually works these regiments. He is in charge. He's a detective assigned. It's like giving a gang detective to the Logan Boys. They're experts on the Logan Boys. This guy's an expert on norteños. So he's interviewed hundreds of norteño soldiers. So it's going to be different. This time we got to go north instead of south, and we got to hear how things work up in Merced County.
I'll tell you, it's going to be a wonderful interview. We'll find out if he is coming, and then we'll be making the announcement. With that said, Benny, tomorrow night, if you get a chance, if you love God, family, country, whiskey, and cigars, tomorrow night's show is for you. Tomorrow night, we have a sergeant from San Diego PD. He's currently still working for San Diego PD by the name of Nick Wan. He's going to be with us. He and his wife, Sarah, are the founders of First Responders Whiskey Society. He's going to be on the show talking about his life as a cop and also how him and his wife founded First Responders Whiskey Society. I think, Benny, they have like 30,000 or more people following them. It's a huge organization, and they're the founders and CEOs of this organization. They're going to be on Ash Wednesday tomorrow. Do you follow them on Facebook, Benny?
I see it all the time, but I'm not a follower. But I wasn't aware that they were the ones responsible for it. But you see it on Facebook quite often, so you also see it on Instagram.
Yeah, he worked for San Diego PD. I can't wait to talk to him. I don't remember him. He had to be around when I was around him. He's a sergeant. But I can't wait to talk to him and find out what academy is. It's going to be a really good interview. Fidel Santillán, bienvenido, hermano. With that said, Benny, any last words, brother?
Well, guys, what just happened with President Trump the other day, there's a lot of talk about
prayers for
lack of training, lack of everything about Secret Service, Homeland Security, and all the locals. Just don't do the job, man. If you're assigned to a task, be up to it and be ready for it. Be fit, be ready to engage. Don't get caught on that. Don't get caught on somebody's iPhone doing stupid stuff or panicking, not knowing what to do. I mean, we as cops, we encounter more high stress situations every single day. Like David said, I mean, we engage it all the time. It's our hearts are going up and down all damn day when you work patrol. I mean, you go from hot call to hot call to hot call to hot call. These guys, they train for that big moment, and that moment might never come. And when sometimes it comes and they're not ready for it, they forget. So, just be ready for that. Things are getting bad. It's going to get worse. So, just don't get caught on that video where you look like a fool and you make your agency look wrong. So, just stay safe out there.
And with that said, Benny, great advice. With that said, live a purpose-driven life. Live every day like it's your last day on earth. Like Chris Kilby said, the legend, San Diego PD legend, make that buddy call. If you haven't talked to one of your friends for a long time, or somebody's going through something, give them a call. Just call. Matter of fact, yesterday I haven't talked to two guys. I hadn't talked to since I retired 8 years ago, and I made 2 buddy calls because I learned it from Chris Kilby. With that said, let me just give you one last word of advice. Trust.
Well, David, I haven't talked to you in 2 days.
Oh, I know. I talk to you almost every day. But you know what? Trust the process and trust the author. Trust the process, trust the author. We'll see you tomorrow on Ash Wednesday. God bless you.
Forever, my darling, my love will be true, always and forever. I'll love just you. Just promise me, darling, your love in return. Make this fire in my soul, dear, forever burn. My heart's at your command, dear, to keep love and to hold. Making you happy is my desire, dear. Keeping you is my goal. I'll forever love you the rest of my days. I'll never part from you.